Welcome to the Online Entrepreneur Experience podcast that details the ins and outs, the how-tos, and the ups and downs of living a life of an online business owner.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Deuces Online here once again to give you a bunch of value, a bunch of knowledge. That is the man, the myth, the legend, Mark Wilson, aka the Viking marketer. We are here again to give you some info, some interesting stuff. We're going to talk to you
though. Is it good info?
You know what? It's fantastic info. It's the best info
perfect
they're
info?
going to listen to. What's that?
Is it perfect info?
Oh, it's so perfect.
So
It's perfectly perfect.
love it.
Okay, so what we want to get into today is talk about value and your value system. What is it that you value? What do you think about that, Mark?
Oh, I love it, man. I love it. I think so often most people do not think about what they actually value in life. And it's because we're so caught up on the day-to-day all the time, right? And it's because we're, for the majority, is trapped in a hamster wheel, right? So every day they're just running the hamster wheel. It's not about what you value. It's just getting through the day and just not dying. So instead of focusing on the things that are important in life, you're just focused on not dying and getting through to the next day, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's when you get stuck in that. They call it the comfort zone, but it's not comfortable because nobody ever wants to be there.
No.
Because what they're doing, whether it's their work and how they're friends, and I mean everybody values their family, but do you value your time with your family? You know, so they call it the comfort zone, like I said, but it's not that comfortable. Because if your values do not align with your day-to-day, things aren't gonna go smooth and they're not gonna be fun. So one thing that I have recently discovered about myself is that my value system is not in line with what I actually want out of this life. So this podcast is more me projecting what I believe rather than me just giving value out of a place of knowledge. This is me learning and growing with you. So what I have discovered is that if you take some time to really reflect on what you value, it goes a long way, because that's the starting point of you creating your life's plan and knowing what you actually want. And if you're like me and you're just so undecided about what you actually want, start with what you don't want.
I think that's massive. And I think so often people do end up starting that way. It's like, what do you want? And then they're like, well, I don't want these things. And it's like, okay, cool. We'll write those things down then, right? But you ultimately need to come up with what you do want. But I think it's because we're so programmed for these negative mindsets that you end up tending to go that direction, right? It's just like, well, I don't want this, I don't want that, I don't want this, I don't want that. And it was like, my wife and me were in counseling a few years ago, and it goes back to the exact same thing. It's like, what makes Karen happy? And Karen's like, well, she talked about like making me happy or the kids happy or any of those type of things. And it's like, no, but what makes Karen happy? And it's like, well, I don't know what makes Karen happy. Like, I never think about that. I do for others, and that makes me happy. And it's just like, no, you ultimately also have to do for you and fill up your own bucket and invest in yourself constantly. And so often the majority don't do that. They get these labels, and I know we talked about that last weekend, these labels like, I am Marcus's dad, I am Renee's friend, all these kind of things, right? Like, and you label yourself to do these things. So you end up being an extension of them instead of just being your own self. So then you don't have your own values, you don't have your own goals, you don't have your own dreams, you don't have your own priorities. It's based off of everybody else's. And the reason why we do this is to protect ourselves from have to be put out there. Because if you're not the one making the decisions, you're not the one that's saying that these are the things that are going on, and you're not having to do for you, well, then you're not to blame, right?
Yeah, I know. And it's a vicious cycle. And I've been in that cycle for far too long. I'll get out of it for a while and then I just get sucked right back in. And one of the big things that I'm going to be doing this weekend, if it was a little warmer out, I'd be going camping, but it's still cold, unfortunately. So I'm probably going to go and get a hotel room. And it's just going to be me and a notepad. And I am going to write down all my values. And the trick with writing down what you value, now it could be family, wealth, financial stability, adventure, creativity, passion, anything that you value, write it all down and then refine it, get it to the point that it's just 5 major value systems. And then that's when you can start writing your plan and asking yourself, well, if you value that so much, why don't you have it? Why don't you have it right now? And why aren't you working towards that? And that's when the creativity comes out to start making your plan. And that's the difference between taking a risk to get what you want or creating a calculated risk to get what you want out of life. And I'm literally doing that this weekend.
And I think that's massive. I think that's massive. And you know, Renee's he may end up going camping because I've seen this guy go camping at the end of October when snow's falling in the sky. So like this wouldn't be too far fetched for him, anyways. But checking in on him every day, bro. You cold? He's like, I'm okay, man. But back to Renee's actual point is, I think that's so huge. And so often we get caught up in life, like I was saying, and don't end up investing in ourselves. And I love the analogy of airplanes and all that kind of stuff, because when you're on an airplane, the first thing they say is you have to put your own face mask on, because if you don't put your own face mask on first, and you're trying to save somebody else's life, you could die before you could save their lives. So you have to save your own life first before you can help other people. And same thing goes, is you have to save yourself every single day or in your life before you can affect the people that you love or impact the value areas of your life. And for me, I know when Renee told me that we're going to be talking about this topic, he talked to me about value systems, priorities, and purpose. And I think they all kind of work very well in conjunction with themselves. But for me, I would say that, like, and I know you talked about reverse engineering the values, I would say you actually have to reverse engineer the whole process. You have to understand what your purpose is before you can prioritize things or even understand why your priorities are the way that they are, because your priorities are in your head and in reality are totally different things. Because I hear all the time, like, you know, my kids are my number one priority. And then you're at a dinner party and the parent is just handing the electronic to the kid and being like, shoo, go away. I'm talking to my friend here. It's like, are they your priority, or, you know, are they just, you know, sometimes your priority? And those are the type of things. I think you really have to start with your purpose, because most people don't even understand what their purpose is in life or any of that kind of stuff. And I know for me, I was purposeless prior to getting into online business, prior to, you know, investing in my own self and my own mindset. And unless you know your purpose, it really doesn't matter what your value system is or your priorities are. Something's going to come in and ruin those things and readjust them for you, where you go back to your old self. That muscle memory will go back there unless you have a very, very strong purpose.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. When you have your purpose, that's like the bigger picture. That's your main goal. And then when you bring it down to your value system, that's your macro goals. And then making those a priority, those are your micro goals. So it starts with your purpose, like what Mark was saying. And as you bring it down and focus it in, that's when you have who you are and what you want. And that's a wonderful feeling to have. And Mark said it best, priorities do shift, and you can easily fall back muscle memory into your old ways, into your old habits, and your old life. But that's why you write this stuff down. That's why you always focus on it, and you reassure yourself every day by reading it every day. This is what I want. This is why. this is my value system that is tied to this, because not every day, once you figure this out, not every day is going to be sunshine and rainbows and monkeys dancing with toothbrushes. It's not going to be that way.
The monkeys dance on unicycles in my brain, so just letting you know.
Oh, okay. Well,
you don't have toothbrushes. We have unicycles.
You should probably talk to someone about that. But priorities do shift, and when they do, you got to just get yourself back on track to hit those goals and those dreams and fulfill your life's purpose. And I know these are some big, heavy, deep topics we're talking about right now in a very light fashion, but it's life. It's what you got to do. It's how you move forward.
If you can't laugh about it, you're going to be crying a lot. And I did tell Renee that I've cried a few times lately, but we'll pretend like that didn't happen. But you have to be happy. You have to find the joy in life. But one of the most profound things that Renee just said there is you have to review it daily. And this is the one practice I think people do not do enough. And they make these grandiose decisions. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do this. And they set up these value systems, these priorities, these new habits, these new goals, and all this type of stuff. And they set it up this one day, have all this momentum, all this fire burning inside. And then the next day hits, and the next day hits, and then the fourth day hits. Something bad happens in their life. They forgot all about what they were thinking about 4 days ago. They go back to who they were, because that is that muscle memory thing. And then all of a sudden, all those goals, all that aspirations, that day that you spent investing in yourself was all for waste, because you stopped reminding yourself what these things are. And the reason why this happens is the brain, it has neurons and electrons, and they constantly fire. I'm going to get a little bit of scientific here with you guys, so I'm really sorry. Maybe I should go. I know. I should put some glasses, I think. I don't know. You guys take me more serious. But what happens is there's different thought patterns that happen in your brain, and those constantly fire, and they're strong neurons that constantly fire in your brain. And then for those to shift, and you not to have that fire in your brain, you actually have to replace it with a new neuron and start building that neuron up of a new thought. And as you're building that one up to being strong, which is repetition, daily thought patterns of constantly saying that this is what I'm doing, this is the way that I think, the old thought pattern, that neuron that constantly is firing, that's constantly telling your brain that this is the way that you're going to think and act and all that kind of stuff, it's constantly getting weaker until it dies. And then a new thought pattern will replace it, because you had to put in those repetitions. So that's why they say that you have to do something 28 times so you don't forget it to form a new habit. Is because it's actually true. You have to do it 28 times for your brain to form that strong neuron in your brain, so it replaces the old neuron and that old thought pattern. And then all of a sudden that will just be thoughtless actions to you. So for you to be able to do this is you constantly have to repeat it. And all the other stuff that we've talked about in this podcast, if you don't do this step, honestly, you're just wasting your time.
1000%. Now, I like to think of myself as a pretty smart guy, but I just learned something about the neurons and electrons and firing, and that went a little over my head. But I do appreciate you for knowing that and sharing that, because it makes so much sense. So much sense about how we can alter the way we think by constant reminders of what is most important to us. I know there is a friend of ours, John. He keeps his goal and what he wants to do with his life, what he values and everything. He's got it on a laminated little card, like the size of a ID card or a driver's license. And he keeps it in his right pocket at all times. So anytime he goes into his pocket, boom, his mind is already starting to think that way. And some people write out a whole page of goals and dreams and aspirations, and they post it to the mirror. So every time they look in the mirror, they'll stop and read this thing for 5 minutes. They'll take the time to do it. And me personally, I rely too much on my own memory to remind myself of why I'm doing what I'm doing.
It's funny how like higher intelligent people, they actually fall into this trap all the time because they're so used to just relying on their regular intellect. So they end up actually, becomes your biggest weakness, even though it's your biggest strength all at the same time.
That's my issue. I'm just too smart. I love that. Love it. So yeah, write it down, read it daily, read it multiple times a day. I know Brendan Bouchard, he's a speaker, author, great guy to follow on social media. He drops tons of golden nuggets. He says he's got this doorway thing that as soon as he walks through a doorway, it triggers his mind to bring the joy to the room and try to be the joy in that space. So every time he walks through a doorway, his mind is now triggered to do that. And he's a super smart guy. He didn't rely on his memory.
No, but he formed a new habit with different triggers. And in the end of the day, like this guy will actually walk into a room thinking bring the joy and walk to a conversation. And then if it's negative at all, he instantly just removes himself from it because it actually makes him ill. Because his thought patterns in his head is like joy, 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 joy. So he just can't be around it. It actually physically make him ill for the way that he's programmed himself, which is just insane. But that's how strong your mind is. And I don't think we all give our minds that credit that it can actually work like that.
Yeah, I love that. Brendan Bouchard's a great guy. But I think we've touched on a lot of heavy subjects. We could probably go for, I don't know, another hour.
Yeah, for sure, bro. These are the topics that I've done so much research on. As you can tell by me getting actually scientific about some things.
Right on, man.
Oh, too funny. Well, guys, thank you very much for showing up for us today. And I know that you got tons of value. So just let us know what the best golden nugget was just in the comment section. And don't forget to leave us a review as well. We are so grateful. You would be our superhero today.
Love it. Okay, guys, don't forget to post it in the comments what your favorite golden nugget was, and also hit the bell notification so you do not miss any of this amazing value that we bring to you guys every week. Okay, guys, take care.
Thanks for tuning into the Online Entrepreneur Experience. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any episodes that we're releasing and any of these amazing pieces of value that we're giving out. And if you could take the time out of your day and leave us a review, we would be so grateful. We look forward to seeing you on that next episode.